What's up, guys? Nick Major here, APTV correspondent. Watsky recently stopped by my place. We had a great chat about his latest album, Times Infinity, and how the recent political season affected the writing process of that, when you can expect some new music from his project Invisible Ink, how his father helped out with his new book, How to Ruin Everything, and a lot more, so stay tuned to see what he had to say.
Some go from pitching religion to sipping on kombucha, politicians switching positions like it's a Kama Sutra.
So nice to meet you properly for the first time.
Yeah.
I was just saying that we were both on Warped 2014, but we never met.
Well, nice to meet you officially.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for stopping by so me and my dog can chat with you. We'll see how much of an impact he has on this interview.
It's my pleasure. And this is Dracula, for those of you who don't know.
Yes, Dracula the Chihuahua Pug. But so I got to ask, man, you're very much into writing, into talking, into all that. When did you realize that you loved doing that stuff? Because growing up, I never would have liked writing. But how did you know, like, this is my thing?
It all happened basically around my sophomore, freshman year of high school. I was about 15, 16 years old, and I had an English teacher who was really into writing, and I was kind of a loudmouth kid who would get in trouble a lot and get kicked out of class. And so he recommended this youth poetry organization to me called Youth Speaks in San Francisco, and I fell in love with it like immediately. I loved writing, I loved wordplay, and I grew up not feeling like I really had a place in it because I was reading all these old stuffy writers. And then I found this art form and realized that there were people out there who were writing poetry that was the way we talked to each other as kids. And so I was just kind of off to the races, and I just really never stopped doing it.
And while a lot of your latest work that people are familiar with is your music stuff, you did in June, you released a little book with some samplings. Is that what it was for exactly? How to Ruin Everything?
How to Ruin Everything, yeah. It was actually an essay collection, and it was very different than the poetry that I grew up writing in that, like, it's traditional prose writing. It was 13 essays and put out by Plume Random House in June, and that was me trying something new. So to know that it was going to be on bookshelves and to get reviewed by book reviewers alongside other established writers, I really wanted to not write a piece of shit. You know, I wanted people to take it seriously as a writing project, not just as a rapper who put out a little, side project. So,
and you achieved that with it, you feel?
I hope so.
Pretty solid writing. And
my dad likes it. He was an English professor, and he went through with a red pen and put a little C next to everything he thought was cliche before I put it out. And
oh, that's good. So he legit helped you grade it?
Well, he helped me edit it. I asked him to, actually, and it was on one hand a little bit stressful, but he is somebody whose opinion really matters to me, and I got great feedback on it. And when I would go on these like blind reviewer sites where the people didn't know me, didn't care about my opinion, it was good feedback for sure.
But so has your dad, has he always been an English teacher?
He was an English teacher in the 70s. He got fired in like the student protest movement when he was I think he started as an English professor in his like mid-20s, younger than I am now. He is just a super smart guy, has 2 PhDs, and now he's a psychotherapist, but he writes poetry on the side. So
is that where some of your writing comes from? Do you think was it inspired by your dad? I
think both my parents.
Oh, really?
They'd read to me as a kid. My mom's an elementary school librarian.
Oh, my mom's an elementary school teacher.
Nice. All right. Shout out. So, yeah, I just had books around me all the time and parents who loved reading and words and stories. So indirectly,
that all probably contributed somewhat. So. And you just put out, is it your 4th or 5th full-length album that you just put out?
Depends how you count it, because I did an album in 2007 that was like a jazz hip-hop album under the name Invisible Ink, and that was really a band effort, not my own solo project. But
so for Watsky, this is more the 4th.
Yeah, 4th. But then the mixtapes are gray areas. Like, what's a mixtape? What's an album these days? Yeah, I've done a lot of like free projects that probably don't count as albums. But yeah, technically the 4th one that I've put out as like an LP. And
so that's the latest one is Times Infinity.
That's right.
What's the difference for you between writing an album and writing, like writing little stories, writing poetry? How does it differ?
Well, when I approach an album, I can put a lot of pressure on myself to be like, I want to say everything that I have in my heart and just really get it all out there. And I particularly with this one, I moved to New York, and I holed up in an apartment in Brooklyn, and I basically isolated myself. Don't recommend this to people, for like 10 months after a breakup, and just, tried to get out a song for every one of my moods and every one of my, sort of perspectives. Like, there's the political half of the album and the personal half of the album. And in some ways, I feel like I bit off a little more than I could chew with it because it's this 18-track.
I was gonna say a lot of songs on it.
A lot of songs. And then
Not bad,
at the end, there's 4 that are like this interconnected suite. And then the last song is like 12 minutes long and has 8 guest rappers on it. And we tell this continuous story. And so, you know, I think with every album, I put all this pressure on myself to really like have this magnum opus that says everything about me. And going forward, I'm going to try and do that less. It's pretty stressful.
How impactful was this recent political season to the writing process of your album? You obviously touch on a lot of things like the gun issues that's going on.
It was a little bit of a tough dance because I knew I was going to be in an election cycle when the album was going to come out. It came out in August. But I didn't know what was going to happen. And so a lot of the stuff in the album that seemed like it was sort of apocalyptic fantasizing ended up being scarily true when Donald Trump won the election. And there were all these lines that took on sort of more disturbing, I don't know your politics, but I was definitely hoping very, very strongly that wouldn't happen. And so when it did, it was really hard to play the shows in the immediate aftermath, but then it seemed like even more relevant because it was sort of, you know, one of the points that I was making was the fact that we even got this close to him being president was scary. And then it happened, and it was just like, okay, this is even more scary now. And something, I'm glad that I touched on politics with the album because in the aftermath of it, I wanted to be even more political with my shows. It just felt like everyone in our band felt like we needed to do more, like we weren't doing enough, and to not speak to the issue felt like a totally abandoning our responsibility as artists. So I'm glad that I touched on it with the album, but now it feels like the game has changed.
So what do you got planned for next year, man?
Next year, I'm doing a second Invisible Ink album, which I mentioned that I had that jazz hip hop project early on. And when we were in Hawaii, all the guys from that band, we got an apartment on the North Shore in Oahu and built a little home studio and worked on a second Invisible Ink project. 10-year reunion album.
I was going to say, how long has it been since you guys did stuff together?
Decade.
What sparked the reunion? What made you guys want to start doing new stuff?
We've just always kept in touch, and Max, who plays keyboards and trumpet in that group, is my first cousin, so I see him all the time, and plays keys in my band. And we've been talking about it for years and finally had this break in our schedules where it all aligned. Like, we've all been doing our own thing, and we finally had time to do it and really and made time to do it. We missed each other and wanted to do a project that was like, even though my stuff's not like radio pop, it's still poppier than the stuff that I made with Invisible Ink. And so we wanted to just make a left field jazzy album. And yeah, we made the time.
And how was that getting back together? Because you're all completely different people, I'm sure, than when you had first been writing together.
You know, we're not at all. You'd think we would be, but maybe it's just because people revert when they hang out with their old friends. But it feels like no time had passed at all, except we all have a little bit more facial hair than we did 10 years ago. And with me, I mean like a little bit more. With them, they have like huge beards and, you know, they look 10 years older. I'd like look 3 years older. But we're the same people, and it was, I think, even a smoother process than doing it before because we felt no pressure this time. We just figured we'd finish the album, do it like minimal budget. It's done, but we still have to put in a couple last verses and mix it and stuff. So we did the bulk of it in Oahu, and when I get back to San Francisco right in the new year, we're going to just put the finishing touches on it.
And any time frame on when you're trying to get that stuff out by as of now?
I think in the spring sometime.
Cool.
But I'm also not putting immediate deadlines on myself because I'm trying to just enjoy a little bit of non-stress.
Yeah, you've been working hard enough the last few months.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for stopping by my place and chatting today with my now sleeping dog. I think
Peace out, Dracula.
Dracula, what did you think? Did you enjoy it? Yeah, he loved it.
It was all right for him.
All right, well, keep having a good time. Enjoy the New Year's, man. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Hell yeah.
Visit www.kisswatskysgluteusmaximus.com. False modesty is a guilty habit. Some people simply have it. But the fact is I would not have spent a decade doing this if I did not believe I was at least a tiny bit ridiculously filthy at it. Wrote a book to branch out. After tour, let's have a sing-along and camp out. Cause I came in for a single reason.